Hi, my name is Dylan, and you're watching rptv. The Regent Park Social Development Plan, also known as the SDP, is a community-wide initiative aimed at fostering unity and togetherness among all the different residents and stakeholder groups in the community. The Social Development Plan is built around 4 areas of priorities of the SDP. Each priority is represented by a different working group. The SDP Working Groups are safety, communications, employment and economic development, and community building. In addition to the 4 working groups, there is an SDP Planning Committee that meets weekly to help guide the activities of the SDP. This week's meeting was chaired by Greg Gary, the Executive Director at the Kiwanis Club and the SDP Agency Co-Chair. There were 3 primary topics discussed at today's meeting. One was a report by the Culture Task Group on their progress in developing a conflict resolution policy. The task group was led by Joel Klassen from Yonge Street Mission. Let's take a look and see what happened.
Hey, how are ya? Hi, Greg.
Hey, so is the link okay, or is it?
Sorry?
Is the link for today's meeting okay?
I hope so. I was able to get in.
Yeah, me too.
I hope other folks are able to join us as well. I see Michael on the line, which is great.
Yeah, do you see Michael and one other person? Is that Lucky or?
That's our new SDP coordinator. You want to introduce yourself, my friend?
Yeah, I
Oh,
met
one thing on that
we
agenda.
met. Yeah,
We
we
met
met.
at the planning.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you doing? Are you gonna put up the agenda?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, do you want me to put it up, or for in terms of the part that we have to share, or since you're facilitating, I was wondering, will you require like time to share screen for anything, or no?
No, I'm gonna let you handle that if you're okay with that. And
Sure.
so we'll start with the agenda, but we can put it up once everybody gets here. Could you drop it into the chat box though, so that people can open it up, and also the minutes from the last meeting?
Yeah, it will be.
Oh, not minutes. We don't need those. Right.
I'm just gonna drop the link. It'll have the agenda and the notes. It's
Okay,
just one file.
appreciate it.
Oh.
Hey, Deanie.
Oh, I'll have to go out and come back in.
Okay. Hey, Joel.
Hey, folks.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
There we go.
Connection on your computer, so once
Hey.
you go stuck online, just remote me back.
Okay.
There you are, Deanie.
Yeah, my speaker wasn't working. I have to sometimes go out and come back in.
Yeah, no, we're all.
I don't understand that at all.
We've
Hi,
all got,
Deanie.
Hello.
Hi, Joel.
yeah, we've all got virtual habits now.
Hi, Marlene.
How you doing?
Hey, Marlene.
I'm ready to party.
Angie.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Angie.
Hi, Joel.
Hey, Waleed.
I decided I don't care that it snowed. I'm going to party. Yeah, it's strange temperature today. Like it gets warmer as the day goes on. As it goes into the evening, the temperature actually improves.
I've never seen this before. It was like way before 0, and it was freezing drizzle instead of snow.
Very strange. Yeah, very.
The climate crisis.
I've never, yeah, it's very unusual. When I looked at the temperature, I went, wait a minute, it's getting warmer as it's getting later? That's.
And I just walked over from Cabbagetown Youth Center back to our spot down here by Gerard, and the temperature had gotten warmer since I went up there. Yeah, surprise.
Crazy.
So I think we'll give people time, right, to kind of come in. I mean, it's 1:06 right now. What do you guys think? 10 after, 15 after? How long do we want to wait?
3 minutes after, 10
I was
minutes.
gonna say, we'll wait until somebody complains. How about that?
Okay, all right, sounds good.
We'll
Sounds
get it
good.
in the chat. Either somebody will tell us what time it is. That's one way that,
Right, yep.
In that case, I'll get another coffee.
Yeah, I think I might go down and heat up my tea too.
I had to leave, slip out of a board meeting to try and get here.
Yeah, I left a huddle, a manager's huddle to come, so I'm gonna go heat up my tea right quick.
Yes.
Smart. Everyone get some snacks.
everybody
It's gonna
get
be an
drinks.
interesting meeting.
I'll be right back.
So we got a big Black History Month event happening on the 25th. Deanie, we gotta promote
Saturday.
that today.
No, I shared that with the information I told Sarah Jane.
And we're gonna send it out to the listserv, the community listserv, as a reminder later on today.
I've
Okay.
received it many times now.
Yeah.
I
So
have,
everyone's gonna see it.
I have received it many times now. I even have a hard copy.
Good. Good.
Waleed, what day is that happening? I just want to put
Saturday.
it down.
From
Saturday.
12. Is it from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m.?
Yeah, 12 to 4.
Yeah.
Second floor, Daniel Special.
There's gonna be lunch. There's gonna be activities. It's gonna be fun. Saturday 12 to 4.
And what's the like? What is
Daniel
it called?
Spectrum, 585 Dundas Street East.
Black History Month.
5, 8, 5, okay.
It's gonna be on the 3rd floor.
Yeah, strengthening our roots.
Yeah. I just put in a request for more funding, Deanie. So hopefully if we get it by Friday, we'll be able to do more on Saturday.
But like, I'm hoping that everybody goes back to thinking about it when they're doing their annual planning in April. You know how they
Yeah.
plan for their fiscal year in April?
Mhm.
They set their budget moving forward. I also would like the SDP to make a request. To remind, you know, the folks that do those budgeting exercises to keep that in mind. You know, for things like Sunday in the park, and et cetera, that
Yeah.
it be
Oh,
budgeted.
by the way, Leah sent out an email about that. Do you know
Yeah,
when
I
she
got
was
it.
meet
That, a doodle poll.
about Sunday in the park? I know
Yeah,
she sent her an
doodle poll.
email. I'm gonna have to track that email back. Just make sure it's good.
Yeah, she sent us a doodle poll. I have to fill it out yet.
Yeah, we gotta get on top of those meetings ASAP and hire a coordinator early. We have the funds this year, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, we have more funds, I think, than Sunday in the Park has ever had, ever. And it's early, so we can book things.
Yeah. Well, last year, so many people loved it. You know how many kids, like teenagers, especially like young kids, are like, I can't wait for next year. Is this happening
I'm
every
telling
Sunday?
you, it's always been.
They thought it was every Sunday. I'm like, nah, it's only this Sunday. I felt so bad sharing those news. I was like, it's
But
okay.
there's
We'll
so
make it
much
bigger and better.
happening. No, there's so much happening over the summer, like there really
Yeah.
is. I gotta find
Yes,
out
my
from
friend.
the health center.
Just
We're going to be doing having a.
50%, it's saying 50% complete. Cleaning up.
We're gonna be having a community-wide barbecue celebration of our 50th anniversary in
Amazing.
July. In July, so I have to
July.
find out.
Dini, remind me about that. I really wanted to show up. We
Well,
also
and
are
I
doing,
have to find out when in July, because I know we were looking at July too, so.
I have an idea. I'm gonna talk to Paulos about this. I saw him at the Wanasa open house yesterday, so I'll send him an email. But NLS is also celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Right? So what we could do is, you know, promote each other, right? Each other's events, 50th anniversary events. And hopefully if it's within the same week or in the same, like it'd be great, right? To like cross promote and let people know that our health center and legal aid clinic are 50 years old as of 2023.
Yeah, our birthday was the 15th of February.
Yeah.
Oh,
Guess
great.
what? So was the legal aid clinic. This is so weird. We like established the same year,
That's
same
when we
day?
Opened, yeah, that's when we were incorporated. So, yeah.
I want to do some research about that. Should be interesting. I wonder how many legal aid clinics and healthcare centers across the city have the same year of establishment.
Well, I don't know. I don't think CHC's. I don't know of any other CHC.
There are many.
No,
There's a CHC in
no, I know
Parkdale.
that. Come on, we'll lead. I said that it opened their doors the same time we did.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yes, I know we have more CHCs.
Yeah, it's interesting. Everywhere there's a legal aid clinic, there's a CHC.
Yeah, that's interesting because that is true. In almost it's because of the nature of whom we serve
Exactly. The most vulnerable. Yeah.
and why we serve whom we serve. Yeah. Yeah. I
Awesome.
haven't served on the NLS board. That's one of the boards I haven't served.
You should join next one.
Maybe,
We need good people on it, that's for sure.
maybe.
All right. Gosh, it's,
Oh,
and is, does Daniela? Is she on?
Not yet. We need our city staff, Greg.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, I wanted to ask about this time conflict that's got going on here on March 1st.
Right.
Hi, Greg. I'm on the call if you're able to hear me.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. 'Cause I
Awesome.
could just-
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, Danielle.
Computer
So
restarted,
you're
brother.
one of the phone numbers? Daniela, you're one of the phone numbers, huh?
Yes, so I think I'm presently unmuted if you're able to hear me.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Who's the second phone number?
I think that's Michael.
Michael. Okay.
Yes, hello. What's the agenda?
Okay. You guys ready to get started?
Yeah, it's 114, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think we should go ahead. We should go ahead and go around.
I'm looking forward to introductions. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we need to do any of that. Everybody knows.
I
everybody.
do. No, we don't.
Oh, okay. So I'm Greg Gary. I'm the executive director of the Toronto Kiwanis Boys and Girls Club. I'm also the co-chair of the ED network, and I also sit at the stakeholders table as one of the co-chairs. And I'll pass it on to Marlene. Marlene may still be away. I'll pass it on to Deanie.
Hi, I'm Deanie Peters, a community development worker with Regent Park Community Health Center. I'll pass to Joel.
Hey folks, I'm Joel Klassen, community capacity builder with Yonge Street Mission, and one of the co-chairs of community building. I think I'll take this moment too I'll just introduce you, Danielle, if that's okay. So Danielle, welcome to you. And Danielle's our new administrative coordinator for the SDP. So we've got his support for us, and thanks so much for joining us, Danielle. And he'll be with us 20 hours a week, and Monday to Friday, with some variation, because as we know, our meetings vary in time on the Thursdays. But we'll give you more details on that. But I just wanted to give Daniel a warm welcome to our group.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
And Danielle will be taking notes today.
Joel, yeah. Now, do you want to pass it on to anyone, or?
Well, let's just let Danielle say something, and then if he just wants to introduce himself at all, and then
Yeah. Well, thanks for that wonderful introduction, Joel. Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you all and learning more, and yeah, helping to make positive change in the community. So thank you, and I'll pass it on to Waleed.
Hi, everyone. My name is Waleed Kogali Ali. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Community Building Working Group and a proud member of the Planning Committee of the SDP. And I'll pass it on to Ishmael.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ismail Afra, and I am the co-chair of the Employment and Economic Development table, as well as the stakeholders table. Welcome, Danielle. That will be interesting because we have Daniela, so the name will be quite interesting. Welcome, and I'm excited for you and for us to have your support.
Hello. Hello. Yes.
What's the status?
I'll pass it to Angie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angie Hawking. I work with the Regent Park Community Ministry, and my office is in the 40 Oak building, so I'm stationed there. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm making lunch. So I'll pass it to Marlene. I don't think went yet, right?
Yeah, you're
Thank
right.
you very much. I have a mouthful as I'm eating lunch. I'm one of the co-chairs for the SDP. I'm Marlene DeGeneva. And yes, welcome, welcome. It's really good to have you on board. And I'm very happy to be here. I'm also co-chair for the RPNA. So thank you. And I will pass it on to, who hasn't spoken?
Adonis hasn't gone, or Michael.
Adonis. Okay. Where are you, Adonis?
Folks, I'm Adonis Huggins, and I'm with the Focus Media Arts Center, formerly called Regent Park Focus. And my video is always winky, but I'm on the communications table. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to the chair because I don't know who went or who's.
Okay, why don't we have Michael, and then Danielle, you'll go last.
Michael Rosenberg, Regent Park Social Action Group, and for SDP Capacity Building and Strategic Plan.
Thank you, Michael. Daniela?
Hello, my name is Daniela. I'm a community development worker with the City of Toronto.
All right, thank you. So now we'll go ahead and get started. I'm the facilitator for today. Daniela, well, I'll ask anyone in the group. Does anyone would like to do the land acknowledgement? If not, I'm going to ask Daniela to do it. Okay. Daniela, would you mind?
Sure. I would like to start by honoring the land that we are on, which has been the site of human activity since time immemorial. It is the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River First Nations. Ontario is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements, and is home to many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and the Métis. These treaties and other agreements, including the One Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, are agreements to peaceably share and care for the land and its resources. Other Indigenous nations, Europeans, and newcomers were invited into this covenant in the spirit of respect, peace, and friendship. We are mindful of broken covenants, and we strive to make this right with the land and with each other. I'll now read the African Ancestral Acknowledgement. We are all treaty people. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or generations past. I would like to also acknowledge those of us who came here forcibly, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Therefore, I honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Danielle, could you bring up the agenda for today?
Yep.
And once he brings it up, could I get someone to read the purpose? You just scroll up to the purpose at the very top. There you go, right there. Maybe enlarge it just a little. Enlarge it a bit. Can someone read that?
Sure, I can read that.
Thanks.
The purpose of the Planning Committee. The committee makes recommendations to the SDP stakeholders table on strategic direction and action priorities, intercommittee alignment, coordination, stakeholder and residential engagement by supporting the SDP stakeholder table to ensure that the meetings are effective, by supporting the 4 working groups to be prepared to report at the SDP stakeholder table meetings by addressing requirements and/or requests that need quick response, by identifying information and/or expertise that stakeholders require in order to make sound and informed decisions, and by developing facilitation approaches that increase the capacity of all stakeholders to engage in discussion and decision-making.
Thank you, Marlene.
Okay.
I appreciate that. And so for today's agenda, the purpose, Joel, you're going to cover off the proposed SDP conflict process, and then I'll facilitate the discussion. Then we're going to talk about status updates of outstanding items for 2022 work plan. Daniela's she'll facilitate that. And then the work plan draft will jointly facilitate, myself and Daniela. And then update about the ED network. Richard, I don't know if he's coming on, Daniela, or if I'll just provide just a quick update. And Adonis, of course, you're able to join me on that if you have anything you want to add. And announcements, React, Amal, Daniela, and Richard. So I don't think Amal's on the call yet, and I know Daniela is, but I don't think Richard's on yet either. So we'll get to that. Is the agenda approved?
I had one thing, if we have time, just to mention the time conflict between a meeting that was organized by us and a meeting that was organized by CBOG that's happening at the same date, same time, expecting the same people present.
Got you. Okay, and you'll just cover that, Deanie, when we get to it, or do you want to give dates and stuff now? Where you'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Danielle is familiar with what I'm talking about.
Okay, all right, that's great. And the next facilitator will be Zoe. So I think we already have that covered. So Joel, are you ready to go? Joel?
Yep.
Okay.
Danielle, could you please share screen on that document? Do you have it available there?
Yep, I'll share it.
You just have to share the top one. I did unite them into one document now. That should work. Let's just check that first. Can you go down, please?
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah, okay, good. So go back up. Great. Okay, so this was some time ago, folks, that we set up the Shaping SDP Culture Group to work on a couple things, a process for people to work through conflict, and a group agreement on how we would conduct ourselves in meetings. So this is a report back on that we've sort of realized that the two are kind of, that there's a way in which they're integrally connected. And we've only completed the one right now, which is the conflict process, but we wanted to report back to you on it, and then wanting to come back with the group agreement much more quickly than this one was. The amount of time this one took. Now we've done quite a bit of work on it. I think that will give us a good grounding for that. So this conflict process, I did send it out earlier this week, I guess. I don't, maybe not everybody had time to look at it, but could the first thing be perhaps just to read it through, or would you like some time to read it through, or shall I, or do you want to ask questions?
So unless it's word for word, as actually as I last heard it, then read it.
I don't believe we made any changes to the top part. The bottom part, I added some words just to make, it's a table, so to make the table understandable to people. So this first part, which is the sort of the framework for it, an introduction to it. Can you see that? Is it big enough text for you to read?
Maybe a little bigger.
Why don't you just read it out loud?
I can do that if you want me to.
How long?
It's about, yeah, it's a full one pager, Adonis. followed by a one-page table.
Sure, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. So Regent Park Social Development Plan conflict process. Approved by the Regent Park Social Development Plan stakeholders table, but that's not happened yet, but when it is, we'll put a date in there. This document is intended to be used as a guide for SDP members who find themselves in conflict with each other. It is not intended to be used as a complaint process. This document aims to support people to understand each other better and to come to agreements. This page summarizes the key principles and values underlying our conflict process. The chart following offers a variety of ways that members can move through conflict. We are aware that there are many different ways to address conflict and that various approaches might work in various situations. As members of the SDP network, this is in bold, we agree to use this guide when facing conflicts that are difficult to resolve. End of bold. In the Social Development Plan community, we understand that conflict will arise among our members as a natural part of people working together. We want to build a culture among us where we all agree that it is not wrong to be in conflict with others. When managed well, it is possible for conflict to lead to groups working better together. When conflicts become stuck, we recognize that they can have repercussions both for individuals involved and for the wider network. As members of the SDP network, we are committed to working together in a way that does not cause harm, brackets, to one another or to our community, end brackets. We recognize that people bring their life experiences to our work, which for many of us includes experiences of trauma. Each of us has the power to speak our truth in a way that shows care and respect for others, including respect for the many differences among us. This includes considering how our actions and words might oppress others. When in conflict, we strive to see it as an opportunity to learn from each other and to grow. We do not use conflicts as opportunities to exert power over one another. We are accountable to ourselves and to each other. Self-accountability. It can be hard to see yourself. When you have an issue with another person or when another person has an issue with you, consider whether you may have contributed to the issue. Are there any changes you can make within yourself? Mutual accountability. If a person brings a concern to you, be open to hearing it and responding from an open stance. In situations where trust is low, look for ways to build it. One way to build trust is to address conflicts with as few people present as necessary. Engaging in conflict with a large number of people present can make addressing the conflict more challenging. As a network, we will continue to equip each other to better deal with conflict beyond this guide, through developing new ways of meeting and through resource sharing, training, and ongoing reflection on our experiences. So that's our framing for this chart that follows. The chart is the sort of the details of the process, and so I'll read that through as well. So we decided to do it in scenarios, and we'll show you what that means. So we just as a preface to the chart, we have a few sort of introductory kind of explainers. So the first explainer is to explain the word party. The word party to a conflict means any SDP member or members, whether a single individual, more than one person, or an organization who is part of a conflict. And so then we have the beginning of the chart itself. So the first sort of stage is SDP members find themselves in a conflict. So that could be one or it could be various. And then some people who are party to it, members of a group where the conflict emerged, may set aside time to discuss its nature and who has been affected by it. Sometimes it's not immediately clear. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not. So those are some sort of introductory points. And then we have our scenarios. And our scenarios are divided up by willingness of people to talk to each other. And there's ways to work through any of those situations is what we're sort of putting forward. So scenario one, both or all parties are willing to talk to each other. Phase one, members set aside time to listen and speak to each other one or more times out of a mutual willingness to come to an understanding. And then within that, the first bullet is an agreed on neutral person and or support people can be present if both or all members wish. Members together use various methods they are familiar with or that the SDP network offers to work through conflicts, including trust building. And those are some of the resources. Like we can have a growing sort of library or a collection of resources, but we have some of them we have made available already. So phase 2 of that scenario, where both parties are willing to talk, is members come to an agreement on resolution or management of the conflict, including agreed on next steps. Bullet 1, we encourage the agreement to be written, or it can be verbal. And that maybe to some extent can be context dependent. Members inform the group that an agreement has been reached. The group may hold a space for feedback. This is the group where the conflict initially emerged. Members reflect together or separately on what worked well or what didn't work. So that's phase 2 of that. And then phase 3 is the case where members do not come to an agreement. So number 1 is if a neutral person is present, their recommendation is sought for next steps. Bullet 1, a more formal mediation may be sought for larger conflicts. And 2, members agree to continue to work together despite their conflict. So they're sort of agreeing to disagree. So that's the scenario where both or all parties are talking to each other. And then in another scenario, scenario 2, not all parties are willing to talk to each other. So phase 1, some want to speak about the conflict while others don't. Those that wish to speak turn to another member of the network or community as a neutral person to seek ways to engage the other. The neutral person can contact the other to explore reasons why they don't want to speak and seeks to bring all together. If those that don't want to talk continue to not want to, those that do want to talk can report this to the group where the conflict emerged, and all can speak to this. We as a network will expect that all parties can continue to work together despite their conflict. So phase 2 of that one is parties work effectively together. They figure out a way just to work together. And then phase 3 is we would look down to the next scenario. And so scenario 3 is no parties wish to talk to each other. So neither or none of the parties involved in the conflict wish to speak about it, but other members find that the work of the group continues to be hindered or to be made difficult. So that's the case where, like, sometimes if nobody's talking to each other, that's not necessarily going to hinder the work of the group because, like, again, similar to the previous scenario, people just agree to disagree. But sometimes it does affect the work of the group. So that's what we're talking about here. So in that situation, one or both parties find the work continues to be hindered and or other members find the work is hindered. This concern is brought to the group where the conflict emerged. So then phase 2 would be the group leads can offer a formal process with a neutral third party, or the group leads can offer to bring together a larger circle with an agreed on facilitator to hear concerns of both parties and create space for all members of the circle to speak about how the conflict is affecting them. And phase 3 or part 3 of that, if parties do not engage with either of the first 2 offers, or if the group's work continues to be hindered, the situation will be addressed through the code of conduct, which will be completed next. So that's the piece where we're seeing the integral connection between the 2. Obviously, we'd like to be able to show you that. We don't have it right now, but if I can just sum up the idea there, if the work is being hindered, that would mean that somehow in the meetings, the meetings aren't able to progress satisfactorily. And so there would be things that would come up through our agreed on code of conduct or whatever title we give that document that could be addressed as a result of those the work being hindered. That's what the thinking is. So that's our document. And the idea is that this will be something that will be used by all working groups, and that we bring it to all the working groups and get buy-in from across the network, and then that this would be something that we can all use and sort of turn to when there's an issue. So maybe start with questions for clarification, and then we could go to discussion.
Okay, that sounds Sounds like a plan, Joel. Does anyone, let me just see, hands up or anything? Sorry, guys, I have like a bunch of stuff up. Joel, do you see any hands yet?
Nope. I want to thank the group that worked on this too. We put a lot of work into it. So Waleed was part of it, Dini, Ismail.
Ishmael or
Lee.
Waleed, do you want to comment on the document?
Yeah.
Michael was part of it too.
Can I comment on this?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to start off by thanking all the members of the SDP Shipping Culture Working Group, Ishmael, Michael, Ines, Joel. I know we were joined by other folks as well. I hope I didn't miss anyone.
We had Amal joined,
Amal.
and Varda, and Zoe helped a lot too.
Exactly. Zoe, how can I forget Zoe? She was very helpful.
Denise earlier on was part of it.
Denise was also part of it. Yes.
And Kevin at the very beginning.
Exactly. So I just want to say that this document was well thought out, negotiated, and consensus was built on this document being a resource for the planning committee, as well as the rest of the SDP and its 4 working groups, and as well as its committees. And I really just want to thank Joel. I think Joel showed tremendous leadership in making sure that we're all focused on making sure this document was done. So special kudos to Joel for being our superstar facilitator to make this document a reality. So thank you, Joel. And I'll leave it at that. I mean, in support of this, adopting this document, so I'll be voting in favor of its adoption. Thank you.
Gail? Thank you, Waleed.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about, I think the city is doing some sessions right now, and I'm wondering how that body of work impacts, or will there be any synergies between the body of work or impacts? And my second question is, are you looking to make a decision and then execute, or will this be a pilot since we've never done anything like this? See how it goes, get some feedback, and then execute. And maybe the third question is, if it's not going to be a pilot and it's going to be as is, what is the control plan to maintain what you're trying to accomplish?
Joel.
Those are all good questions. It's not clear to me what I mean, I think what you're talking about is the React focus groups. Is that right, Gail?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think they're basically going to make a report back based on what they hear, and so this document will not really have gotten much legs underneath it in that time frame. I think it may have some. It was mentioned in yesterday's meeting, which was the first focus group. I think, but I think we could think that through, and it seems to me it would be a good idea, if nothing else, to share the document with them once we have agreement on it. But others, if there's others that want to respond to that specific question, please go ahead, and I'll respond to the rest, if that's okay, Greg.
Yeah, Joel, I just wanted to ask you just one question on who we would share it with. Do you have specific people you're thinking of?
These are the consultants that are leading these focus groups that Gail is referring to.
Okay.
So Greg,
yeah.
I wonder if Amal or Daniela want to respond specifically to the piece about React.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I could offer a response about React as well as the sessions, because it's not something being led by the city of Toronto. It's actually a partnership with the ARAP program in terms of them, as ARAP sought them out and shared with them some of the challenges we're experiencing as a network. And then we brought
React in including those two lovely facilitators at yesterday's session, and they will be doing a needs assessment for the group and providing a report as well as like some tools that we can use. So to answer a question about how it all fits, I kind of picture it as like building a toolkit and capacity to respond to certain things, whether that is like difficult conversations or challenging moments. The work that React is doing, as well as the work that the SDP culture is doing, I see that as just like improving capacity as well as different resources that we can turn to. I see Amal is also on the call, so if there's anything you'd like to add to that question about how React's sessions fit into the SDP culture.
Yeah, so our intention is with the facilitated dialogue and the report from there. The report from those dialogues will inform the shaping of the workshop, but the workshop reports and the focus group discussions or facilitated dialogue report will all be brought back to the network, and this will help support the work that Shaping the Culture is doing. That's the intention that we see, because we would like that report, things that come out of the workshop, to be shared with Shaping the Culture group and help inform future strategies or the current work that they are doing now. And maybe it can strengthen it or inform it in a different way. And so our goal is whatever comes out from the React consultants, that it would be within the network to build their capacity or build their knowledge on. And ideally, it would be something that I would hope lays within the Shaping the Culture group to help inform them in terms of providing future strategies in the future.
Great, thanks. So I'll just, if I can just finish my response to Gail. So that was the first piece of her question. Is that okay, Greg? If I
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. So the rest of the response to Gail is regarding a plan for how to sort of move it through and whether it's a pilot. So we haven't talked about either of those, but we can bring those back, Gail. And I think it is a good idea to have a sort of a plan for implementation of this. We hadn't got to that yet. I would suggest, I'm thinking, I mean, I'll bring that back to the group. And I sort of was intimating this, I think, but maybe I didn't say it specifically. I think it would be good for us to try to finish the group agreement or the code of conduct and bring all of that as a package together to the stakeholders table and together with a plan for implementation. So that would be what I would, we'll talk about it as a group, but that would be what I would suggest. Does that answer all your questions, Gail?
Yeah. So I was also going to comment on the first part of that.
Okay, Michael, can we just get Gail in to respond, and then you'll be after Regent, after Adonis, and after Marlene, okay? Okay.
Yeah, missing pieces of
Gail, one more time, you're breaking up. Gail, one more time, you're breaking up a bit.
Yeah, the other piece would be around how do you maintain this?
That's what I'm calling an implementation plan, Gail. And so I think it's a good question, and I want to bring it back.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. It will be Adonis, Marlene, and then Michael. So Adonis.
Yeah, I think it's a great guide. I guess following Gail's question, I think it would be helpful if there's either ombudsperson or a facilitator, just in terms of helping people walk through the process. So if there's a conflict and the parties need some kind of guide to where they start from, it'd be helpful that the SDP Planning Committee or someone around the SDP is appointed just to help facilitate that process in terms of, okay, here's the guide, here are the steps, what would you like to do? You know, so it would be great to see someone sort of from the cultural committee committed to do that work that everybody knows about. This is a person that we should go to.
Thanks, Adonis. Would that be a single person or a group?
Yeah, I don't think groups work in terms of a process like that. A single person to help, and if it'd be great if they're attached to the culture group and could get support, but really it's a single person that they could go through and just walk through that process.
Okay, thanks. Joel? any response to that, or are you just taking it in right now?
Yeah, I think we'll just take that back. I think that's good.
Okay.
That's definitely worth thinking about for sure.
Okay, Marlene?
Yeah, I think it's a really good plan. I think it's thoughtful. It's, you know, it's well thought out. It's well crafted. It doesn't sound complicated to me. It's, you know, I think that's, and I think having a person there is a good thing.
Yeah, me too.
To have one person that you deal with. I think it's a really good plan to follow. I really do. Yeah.
Thanks, Marlene. Michael?
So for the first part about like how it relates to these other meetings, so I don't know, I haven't got a sense yet of whether those other meetings are more dealing with specific conflicts or just general workshops on conflict resolution, or what the format is. But I mean, presumably one possibility is that those work meetings or work could be considered as an example of what is described in this process. But I don't know to what extent that's true, whether it really is consistent with this or not. But I would say that we should try to move it into that form. So if the process needs to be followed up with specific, like dealing with specific conflicts, then that can be done under this conflict process. I'm not clear what kind of report the consultants are intending to produce, but I mean, this process here kind of talks about how things will be brought back to where the conflict occurred. Like, I don't think the consultants for this other process should be like trying to override this process, and I don't know whether they will, because I don't understand the description of the kind of report they were trying to produce. But my feeling is that it's possible, and hopefully will be the case, that process can be essentially folded into this process. As far as that other point about having a sort of ombudsperson for this, I tend to feel in these kinds of situations it's better to have more than one in case somebody doesn't feel comfortable with one of the particular people. So, but whatever, I mean, that's an implementation thing. I think the process itself talks about having third parties present who would be agreed to. So the process for specific conflicts explains how that would happen. Whether like there needs to be sort of an overall person who just sort of introduces the process, that's certainly possible. I mean, but I think the idea is that once there is a specific conflict identified, that any third parties involved would be agreed upon by the people involved in the conflict, so that they can actually have somebody they can work with.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, that's an old hand, right, Gail? Yeah, I think it is. So Joel, is what are the action items that came out of the conversation that your takeaways that you want us to, put in the column that what we're going to do next?
Sure. Well, so the main thing I want to hear from the group is, I mean, just want to make sure there's space for people to raise any other concerns they may have, to know if people feel we're on the right track with this document, and then if we bring the code of conduct into it and have them sort of bouncing off each other or working off each other, that will be good. Obviously, we'll bring that code of conduct back for the group to consider as well. So are people good with that plan of action? And these comments or feedback I've heard, I think will definitely, I guess maybe I'm adding a third thing here that we'll bring back next time, which is a plan for implementing this. And we'll take into consideration the idea of an ombudsperson or more than one, and how that would go on. And another thing we've talked about in the group that's also an implementation thing that we haven't really landed on, but who are people going to turn to as neutral people? Maybe they'll know, but maybe they'll want some suggestions. So another possibility might be to have a roster of people who are willing to support team members to go through the process.
And that's, Joel, that's what I was thinking as well. But the other question I wanted to ask you, is there a tie-in between the code of conduct and the actual conflict resolution? So if someone chooses not to participate in any of these parts of conflict resolution, and the conflict isn't resolved, does the code of conduct kick in, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's what that last box says. If you want to share it again, Danielle, the scenario 3, phase 3, and so this the key piece here, folks, is how are we gonna work an accountability structure through, which is kind of like a way in which we can have meaningful accountability when things just aren't working. And so that's where that box was the response to that concern, just to unpack that a little for you. And so, and then the thinking that we came to finally in the end was the way to channel accountability is through the code of conduct.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Deanie, do you want to?
Yeah, I did. In regards to the neutral parties, in a lot of the processes that are similar to this, they call them advocates. And those people are trained that it actually does require some kind of training. So I just wanted to flag that as there may be a resource implication to ensuring that people have the proper training to carry out that role.
Joel?
Yeah, that's a good point too, and that's something that we'll as we think through this implementation and how we're going to make it work, we'll take all those things into account.
Okay, so are the next steps is that you'll come back to the group with the code of conduct, and then you'll ask for approval on the entire document, both documents,
as well as an implementation plan.
As well as an implementation. Will you bring the implementation plan, or will it be discussed amongst the group?
I'm suggesting that we would bring it and propose it back to the group if people are okay with that.
Yeah, I'm seeing heads nodding. There's other people not on screens, but I think if anybody does have a problem with Joel and his group coming back with the implementation plan, raise your hand and you can comment on it. Okay, that's great, Joel. I think that concludes it. If you're
there's a question from Gail, if I could respond to it in the chat.
Yes.
And actually, if I also may, I'm just happy to see that Karen Villanueva has joined us, and want to welcome her.
Thank you so much, Joel, and everyone. I know it's been a while since I've been in the community. I was doing my master's, having a baby, a lot of life changes, but just trying to get back in action. I'm really here to just shadow a lot of you and just like listen, learn where things are at. Hopefully I'll be connecting with some of you in the near future just for community updates as I'm slowly getting back into my role. And yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I know I'm just kind of just sitting in. But that's the beauty of these meetings as well, that everyone can just like participate or quietly sit in and learn and listen. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Karen. There might be people that don't know you. Do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is Karen Villanueva, and I have been working with Center of Learning and Development for the past 8 years. Our common name in the community is the TV Learning Center. I work with Soraya, Alfred, a whole bunch of folks that have been in the community for a long time. And I'm actually joining back in a new role as Deputy Executive Director of the agency. So I'm just glad to come back to the community and just start working on new projects. So thank you so much. I'm open if you have any questions about my role or anything that I do. I'll post my email on the chat, and feel free to reach out if you want to have a chat with me. I'm also in person in the community, usually Monday to Thursday. So that's me.
All right, thank you very much. And Joel, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to finish the answer to Gail. Was the safety team part of this process? So Ines has been an integral part of the process, and now so that's the person who's present in the safety network who has participated. Well, and Deanie as well. Sorry, Deanie, my apologies.
What about me, Joel? I don't matter.
Oh, I'm not even up to date on this. See, I don't even
Man,
know.
you're sinking yourself there.
Help me, Waleed, pull me out. Who else am I forgetting?
We had some active members of the safety network for sure.
Yeah. All right. Okay, that's fantastic. Good work, Joel, and you and the group.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one quick remark to Karen, Greg, if you don't mind, before you
Yes,
move on.
absolutely. Yeah.
Congratulations, Karen, in your new role. That's really great to hear that you're part of governance at the TD Learning Center, I believe. I hope I got that acronym correct. And it's so refreshing because we've always had folks from the TD Learning Center as part of the planning committee. So I'm glad that that's happening. And I hope that we also have folks from TCH, Toronto Community Housing, as well, because they're a major stakeholder, and others. So thank you, Karen. We're going to need all your help, your support, and guidance. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Waleed.
All right. All right, why don't we move on to the next agenda item now, okay? So we're going to get a status update on our outstanding items from the 2022 work plan. Daniela?
Great, thank you, Greg. So from last week's meeting, we had a chance to go over the fourth quarter and just get some status updates, except there were two outstanding items that I believe, sorry, hold on. I believe Waleed is the lead for. If you're able to see my screen, the items were the social impacts of rezoning, and then there was also the strategic planning task group. So in terms of statuses for that, as well as a timeline.
All said, Daniela. For the strategic planning task group, we already started meeting. And in fact, under other business, I was going to ask members for the availability for the next meeting, so we could have consistent meetings moving forward. And some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about in our strategic planning will relate to the social impacts of rezoning. I'm the only person listed there because from the perspective of the Community Benefits Oversight Working Group, which is a committee of the SDP, it's critical to understand what resource needs for the SDP in the future over the next 10 to 15 years. So you want to be able to articulate that in our asks when it comes to community benefit dollars being directed to the SDP. What I'm going to recommend is we just look at a time right now and just schedule. Is that okay with you, Daniela, if I ask members of the strategic planning task group? I know Deanie is part of it. Michael is part of it. I know Richard showed interest. Marlene, I'm not sure if you're interested in this, but it'll be great to have your input. And Ishmael as well, Gail, and anyone else who's interested in strategic planning. I think we had our last meeting. Let me just check right now.
Sorry, so for context, I was just hoping if you could provide an update in terms of like a timeline for it, because after your update, we're going to move on to drafting the 2023 work plan. So for the two items, I was just wondering if you can share if there's going to be, whether they're like ongoing, in progress.
It's ongoing.
Okay, great. So then I'm going to now share a different tab on my screen. Are you able to see a new document right now?
Yeah. Could you just make it a little bigger, Daniela?
Okay, so what I'm sharing presently are items from the 2022 work plan that were either labeled as in progress or not started. So those that are like outstanding, just for our own review, so that everyone has like a shared understanding of what's not included, sorry, or what's not been completed, so that when we're looking at the 2023 work plan, we can just ideally prioritize those items from last year that did not reach their objective. So I'm going to quickly go over just the different parts to make sure, again, like we're not missing anything. So from Q1, we have the SDP Working Group Co-Chair elections. We have SDP culture, as well as reviewing the purpose of Planning Committee, 50K projects, and understanding the CDW role. From Q2, we have terms of reference. From Q3, we have SDP alignment, as well as priority setting for the working groups and SDP hiring practices. And from Q4, we have a stakeholders table, strategic planning task group, social impacts of rezoning, refresh update of the SDP, resident engagement in the UN Habitat Pavilion Subcommittee. So again, I pulled these from last year's work plan based on our discussions over the past couple of weeks. Deanie, I have a hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to, for clarity, because people get confused all the time. So I just wanted to make it clear that the rezoning is not in scope of the CBOG. The CBOG, even though it does deal with, the community benefits, it's actually not dealing with community benefits associated to rezoning. So it's out of scope, and people get that confused all the time. So I just wanted to, so we don't run into that wall.
Okay, so I have Michael next on the speakers list.
So the other item we were going to talk about at this meeting was the community report back meeting.
Okay, so community report back, was that something outstanding from the 2022 work plan, or is that something is it a new item?
Annual.
I mean, it's outstanding in the sense that we should have started planning for it by now. But you can put it into the first quarter of this year, but it's an outstanding item.
Okay,
Yes.
so I
It's
will
called
put
the progress report.
Progress report. All right, so that's been added. So then now, sorry, is everyone in agreement in terms of what's outstanding from 2022? Okay. So if I don't hear objections, I'm going to assume that is agreement. So I will wait in case there's anything else to be added from the 2022 work plan. All right, so then next is looking at drafting the 2023 work plan in terms of priorities. So what I had gotten down so far for Q1 is one, reviewing last year, creating this work plan, strategic planning, as well as alignment, shaping SDP culture. Joel had shared a March 2023 report back, as well as a stakeholder table meeting for Q1. Were there other, so from these priorities that we had here, so being the working group co-chair elections, as well as reviewing the purpose of planning committee, progress report, 50K projects, and understanding the CDW role, anything to add for 2023 Q1? I think I see a hand.
So you're adding the community report back.
Yeah, so that's been added, but it hasn't been added to a specific quarter yet.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be in the first quarter.
Okay, so the first quarter is presently scheduled to end in a month. Is that something you feel like could be achieved in a month, the progress report?
No. No.
Okay, I will go to the next hands. I think Ishmael is next.
Yeah, so a question I had is what sort of considerations do we need to have to choose between what goes to Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4? Because in many ways, lots of things are happening at the same time, and I believe they shouldn't, because we don't have the capacity to do all of them. So we have to be selective in terms of what to prioritize, and you don't want to have 8 different meetings happening at the same time. So what sort of things we need to consider when making these choices? And I don't believe I saw the capacity building task group in the list.
I can double check if capacity building is here. But good catch. And then as for priorities, so presently what is there in Q1 is creating a work plan, strategic planning, SDP culture, and a stakeholder meeting. But if we feel like there are other priorities that could be discussed, what I was looking at were based on what's been unfinished for the most amount of time, that being those items from Q1 of 2022. But if we decide we can not focus on that for, this first quarter, that's also an option the group can make. I have a hand up from Gail next.
Sorry, in case I'm not on the right track. Are you just doing quarter by quarter?
Yeah, so presently looking at Q1 as we have a month left. So I want to make sure that we're identifying what are like the priorities in terms of like this current season that we're in.
Yeah, so could, oh boy, administration, but I think having this in a different format so you can see where times are colliding may be helpful. But I'll make a few suggestions. I just need a little bit of time.
Right.
The other piece here, though, is I'm wondering about I know there's a project. I don't know if it's called the big bridge builders, but there's a project around engagement. That
yes.
Dixon Hall, is that going to be part of this, or is that outside of this?
So how I see that aligning with the work plan is under 50K projects, because Bridge Builders is one of those projects, I believe from 2020. I think it's a project that's been outstanding, and the timeline for that is completion by May. So it would fall in, so May 2023. So I see it falling into like Q2 if we were to name like Bridge Builders specifically in the work plan, if that's of interest.
Yeah.
Hello.
I think we need to name it. I think it's one of the, if you think about importance of priority things, if you got your full list of 50 per Ismail's comment, where's the priorities? What's number 10, 9, 8? Like, and then you can layer what resources you would need, and maybe, or is there more you can pick up, or still things you have to drop?
Right.
Well, if we're
so then
educated about SDP, then yeah, I think it's kind of important.
Right, in terms of like those priorities. And also I think it's important like to have the priorities, but also account for times off, whether those are going to have to be accommodations for certain seasons. So also noting down what are the dates for Ramadan, what are the dates for other holidays that might be coming up in celebrations, as well as a summer break and winter break. So just again, like confirming that we're making note of those days of significance in the 2023 calendar. So we're just being honest with ourselves about what the capacity and focus is going to be on during those different seasons. I have Ishmael and then Michael.
Yeah, just for my own understanding, when we put things in here, Q1, Q2, these are completion dates, right? Not start dates.
Correct.
Okay, so people could be working towards it, and if we put them in Q2, that means it would be complete in Q2, not starting in Q2.
In terms of the as well as like with report back, that's something that we've also included, is just making note of when each item is going to be reporting back to the planning committee, because this is the work plan that will be used by the group to keep track in terms of like follow-up, And I'm also going to share a link to the outstanding items from 2022 that could help us with priority setting. I
So, for
have
instance, yeah, so let me just clarify. So for instance, if something is put in quarter 3, but it's a big thing which requires people start working on it now, that could happen. It just means that if we put it quarter 3, that means it comes back here to be reported in quarter 3.
So how I've seen it, again, if we can use that as like a metric, so whether we see the work plan as when we're starting things or when it's completing based on like where we place it. But I've seen it as the work plan notes down like when things start, and often like it has like an end date in that same quarter. So for example, with the stakeholders table meeting, it can start planning for it in the beginning of January, but the event's in March. Next, sorry, actually, Ishmael, did you have other questions?
No, because I just wanted to get that because sometimes I just got a little bit confused because sometimes something could start at quarter 2, but we put it in quarter 3 because that's the end when we want it to be finished. But anyway, thank you.
Right, and in the work plan, we've had a tab, or more so like a column called timeline that includes like a start date, report back, end date. So if that's like a way to kind of like account for those certain milestones or kind of checkpoints you're interested in, I feel like that's something we can consider to continue using, or we can look at maybe using a different type of way to kind of keep track of those dates. Next, I have Michael and then Deanie.
So just like some of these things are ongoing, some of them have a start, some of them have an end. So you know, you're going to have some things that do have an actual start date in there. So it depends on which ones they are. I mean, some of them don't have an end date either. Like the UN Pavilion does not have an end date. So I think that it depends which line you're on, whether you're putting in an ongoing, a start date, or an end date, or both.
I'm in another Zoom. I'm in a Zoom right now. Yeah.
So, but the other thing I wanted to be clear about is that at last meeting, we put on the agenda for this meeting to set the date for the community report back. So, if we can't like figure that out during this while we're working on the work plan, then it's still an agenda item, and we still have to do it today.
So next we have Deanie.
Yeah, I didn't take a close look at the chart while you had it out, so excuse me if it's there. But I had asked in our previous meeting to add a column for resources so that we don't run into the same problem we did in the past where we had expectations and no funding. So that when we do the 50K budgeting, we can at least have some indication of what we need in order to pay for some of the expenses that come with the things that we want to do.
Great, thank you. So I'll make note for when we are going through actually creating the draft, we can add a column about resources. Were there other questions or comments about priorities for the 2023 work plan? Also, I shared a link in the chat to outstanding items from 2022, just so it's all there on one page. I have Adonis with a hand up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't see the bold document, I think, but one of the work groups is the funding task group.
Okay, so as for the funding task group, is this like a project or event that you'd like to be added for the 2023 work plan?
Yes, I believe so. It's a report or report back anyways.
Okay, so, and as for the report back, is there a start date or like a timeline you could share?
Well, to start, we're in that process We're in that process now, and we hope to have it all resolved and in time for the 2024 call for proposals.
Okay, so maybe we can talk about that then next week in terms of like where we think it'll be best to add that in the work plan. And perhaps it doesn't go under any quarter if you think it's going to be like ongoing or there's no like set date for it.
Okay.
And then if there are no more, or sorry, are there other priorities individuals want to share for the 2023 work plan?
Well, actually, the 2024 funding itself, not just the process we're dealing with, but the actual, as was mentioned, the actual call for proposals does have to occur in 2023.
Right. So also adding on the work plan, the 2024 call for proposals.
Yes.
Shouldn't we leave that to this group that's already in conversation with the city? As opposed to creating another line?
Ishmael, is that for Daniela?
Yeah, I think the recommendation Michael is making in terms of the 2023 call for proposal, all those pieces have to do with our conversation with the city. So the conversation Adonis was talking about. So it's under one item.
Okay, so then is the recommendation that it remains under one item?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it will be, I just have noted down the funding group report back. And then we can get more into like a timeline for that. And at the moment, if there are no other priorities for 2023, I can end this item and move on to the next.
So is the community report back meeting now a separate agenda item? Because that's what we wanted it to be last week.
So in terms of like the progress report, it is on the work plan as like
no,
an
I meant
outstanding.
an agenda item for today's meeting.
So
I'm really
it's
asking the chair, like the facilitator of the meeting, because it's a separate agenda item from the work plan.
And you're asking for it to be added as new business?
Well, that's what we discussed last meeting, is that we would have an agenda item for it this week.
Okay, it's not, I'll answer your question. It's not on the agenda, but we will have some time. So Daniela, is this ending your second part as well, the work plan draft?
Yes. Yeah, so we can get back to in terms of identifying priorities for the group. And yeah, that will conclude this item.
Okay, so Michael, we're gonna have time at the end to come back to this. So why don't we just hold that one and we will be able to add it at the end, okay? Michael? Okay. All right, so Daniela and Richard they came in and had a presented to the ED network at our first meeting. Actually, Adonis's group had some really good notes out of that. So I'm going to just introduce those notes and I will share them with the group. But I'm going to let Richard talk about the visit. Okay, so I'll share these notes. Adonis, is that okay? Your notes from the ED network meeting, if I share it with the group?
Sure. I mean, sure.
Okay, so I'll just share those so that people know what went on in the meeting, but I'm going to let Richard talk about it. Okay, Richard?
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great day. I just wanted to quickly talk about some of the things that we had done at or connected with the ED network. So the slide's up there. So one of the things is identify and support. So in-kind services agencies are offering to the SDP. I don't think that's ever been identified per se. I think that just kind of happened kind of at an ad hoc, in an ad hoc way, or just as is. Also identifying supports and knowledge hubs. Relationship building. What is the relationship between the SDP and the ED network? From the understanding from a lot of the members at this call, that there isn't a real solidified relationship. They're there, but how do the two correlate, or how do they connect? And also looking at community building and outreach. How do we utilize agencies to outreach for the SDP, and vice versa, to also get the SDP to outreach for agencies as well. And creating an agency investment report, and that would fall on myself and Daniela, but to look at the amount of investments that agencies are also putting into the SDP as well, as we do for as the city does when we do our investment report as well. So looking at strategic staffing as well, and this is something that's come up at a few tables, but if there is specialists within the organization that are talking employment specialists, youth specialists, whatever that specialty is looking at the staff, looking at the agency supporting for us to utilize those staffing expertise to bring them to the table, so that we have a little bit more of a connection to some of the pieces, some of their agency pieces as well, such as if the EED table, if there's 5 agencies that are sitting at that are at the ED table and they have employment services, then I think that we should look at connecting those staff to those tables. If there's some staff that are involved in safety, why are they not, if you're a part of it, why are they not sitting at the safety table as well? And then I think that goes to the supporting with the connectivity to services, and using the SDP and the organizations as outreach assets, and those arrows kind of go both ways. It's just not agencies outreaching for the SDP, but it's also SDP outreaching for agencies when they have hiring events, when they have whatever else they have. So really just solidifying that connectivity.
So next, we shared a bit about youth engagement and investments from the City of Toronto, in particularly the $250,000 that was allocated through the RP Youth. So that resulted in funds for several community-led projects, one which Adonis was actually successful in receiving money for. I believe it was like a woman's magazine, or like a young woman magazine, as well as just emphasizing how you continue to be a priority group to be engaged in Regent Park, as well as our hope with connecting with agencies, whether that is through youth outreach workers, or children and youth specialists who, again, are interested in prioritizing youth as well, so that we can have broader conversations about how they can be involved in the youth outreach network, or in terms of having more youth representation across the network in leadership positions, or even in working groups and committees as well. Next, we talked to the ED network about legacy funds. So this is a quick background about how in the early 1980s, when Regent Park was still an all TCHC community, residents contributed some money for 3 years towards building a recreation center, as at the time there was not one. And once there was one created in 1987, it did not use any of those funds created by Regent Park residents, as well as the funds that were matched by the government. So in terms of like the legacy fund, we're hoping that this will also be launched in 2023 with the goal of providing capacity building opportunities for residents to develop grant guidelines, as well as promote outreach materials, encourage RP residents to share their ideas and community-focused projects, as well as supporting community development, capacity building, and special events in Regent Park. And then I believe this is the last slide. So also on the legacy funds, but we shared with the network what the trustee roles would be should they be interested in partnering with the city. So as for like the trustee, they would oversee the grant fund disbursement, monitoring and reporting, as well as providing workshops and training to support applicants' capacity building, as well as connecting with the community reference group and those staff designated from the City of Toronto and TCHC for this grant. And then we concluded with a good old question slide, as well as our contact information. I'll now stop sharing the screen. Richard, was there anything else you wanted to add from our presentation last week?
Nope, really just looking to get a little bit more of some actual factuals from agencies and organizations of what they're what they're offering the SDP or what they can offer the SDP, and then at least for on a SDP side of things, we know kind of what is there and what is to be offered. So really just looking at a almost what kind of assets can we continue to tap into within the agencies in Regent Park.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Daniela. Does anyone have any questions to Daniela or Richard about their presentation, or to me just on the ED network side? Okay, Deanie?
Yeah, in regards to the in-kind, are you planning to have an in-kind tracking system? Something we've never had, but it's really helpful if we're going to look at diversifying our funding, because a lot of funders will ask for in-kind matching dollars, but we don't really have a mechanism in place to be able to track our in-kind.
Right. So in terms of something that came up was an agency appendix where the different agencies would be sharing what resources they have to provide, as well as like who are those key contacts. So I feel like often that can kind of be like lost in like the entanglement between a community member trying to reach out to an agency and not being too sure who is like the key person who would have answers to those resources that may be of interest. So with having like an agency appendix, the goal is to make it known, one, what is the agency's mandate, how they're able to support the SDP, and having it documented, as well as like who are those key contacts, so that we're making sure the mutual understanding and agreement is known across both like the SDP and with the agency. But also there's like a clear channel on who to reach out to, rather than it just being like vague in terms of referencing like, you know, just an agency. Instead, you can reference like the key person who would be providing the resource, or at least who would have access so that resource can be attained.
So I know you talked about investing, the agency's investment in the SDP. That's why I'm asking about whether or not there was any consideration around in-kind tracking mechanisms.
Yeah, so the mechanism would be like the appendix that we talked about. So kind of think of it like a living document where the different agencies who are stakeholders in the SDP have listed like what their mandate is, what the in-kind support is, as well as like how to access that support.
So then we would be able to calculate based off that?
Ideally, yes.
I think you would be, but not down. I don't think you'd get down to the dollar kind of thing. I think you'd be able to get an idea. If you look at from an agency standpoint, anyone here that's with an agency, they're in-kind dollars to support the SDP. They're already adding to that, right? So, but we're looking at doing kind of that report to kind of roll up that to say, hey, you know, Yonge Street Mission has put 200,000 towards this year, and Regent Park CHC has put this much money. All these kind of things that I think a lot of times Dini will fall kind of in-kind support and won't actually be in actual like dollars.
Yeah, because we did that for Focus once in the past. We had we tracked our in-kind, and it was really helpful, like I said, because there are funders out there that ask, you know, for matching.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and that's I think that's one of the goals, Dini, is then to all of this is the goal of how do we collectively go to Trillium or McConnell or one of these foundations, then to ask for larger sums. So I just want to also reference that none of this, we're just telling you what we went to the table with. We haven't got any solid confirmations back from the table. So this is literally just showing. Maybe that's Ishmael put down his hand, that's why. But this is just saying, hey, this is what we went to the table with on some things that we'd like to see from the city's end, and some things that we're hearing from you all when you talk and speak about some of the agency pieces. And I know that Ishmael and the EED is always looking for more people that are involved in employment and some of those opportunities. And we have agencies that are also doing that work. So how do we bring some of those specialists to those tables? Ishmael, I know you had your hand up. Did I?
Yeah, that was the question. What was the response from them?
Yeah,
so
we haven't got that. Yeah, that will be Greg's. Greg will speak to that.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. First of all, when the presentation was outstanding. They're not the city isn't at the table all the time. They come. Our goal is to have them come in occasionally. Our group, the ED network right now, is going through a process of strategic planning, and we're determining how best we can. One of the areas we're taking a good look at is how best we can support the SDP. And some of that will be, as Richard said, in-kind support, but Dini, in a lot of ways, I don't see it as ways that we could document it as a donation, really, and then really kind of qualify it that way. But I do think we could find a way how to track it and say these are the hours that organizations and the resources that our organizations have contributed to support the SDP. So I do think we could do that in that appendix that Danella was talking about. I think we did start to explore that. I see Adonis has came on screen. Did you want to jump in on this one, Adonis?
No, I think you said it fine, Greg. Yeah, I guess that the SDP has, ever since the conversation that has happened some time ago, I think with Lindsay, who presented, that there was always trying to figure out how we could support the SDP as the ED network. And now I guess we're talking about how we can more structurally do that. So looking at a committee or a task group that could really look at those issues and really advocate for the SDP around resources and supports.
Yeah, thanks, Adonis. Ishmael?
Only if you finished. I have a question.
Did you want to go in? Because I'm really finished. You can go in a different direction if you want.
Yeah. I think so that's a great initiative from both the Executive Directors Network and the city. And I think like starting these conversations and actually putting pieces together, I think that's brilliant. Going forward, sometimes I do ask myself, there are pieces that both the Executive Directors Network and the city could coordinate around and have fulsome discussions. But I think it's also important, like last time with Lindsay, the SDP went to the ED network and sort of had those discussions. So I'm just thinking next time if it's sort of the city having dialogues, I think that's fine. But going forward, the conversation, some conversations need to be had with the SDP itself as well. So keep in mind times that the city needs to talk with the ED and times where this network needs to talk with the ED.
Okay, yeah, understood and definitely agree. And Richard, you want to go ahead before I respond?
Yeah, I think that again, Ishmael, that was just the initial conversation. One of the things that we kind of came out of it is I'm not sure that the entire ED network has a real understanding of the SDP as a whole. So there's been some movement within the ED network. There's been some movement within the SDP. So one of the things that we did mention is that we would like to start to now engage the SDP with a presentation to the ED network and then start that process. So this was kind of step one of us kind of getting in there, because we've been asking to get in there, to be perfectly honest, for about 6 months to get into this meeting. And this is our first meeting that we've actually been to, myself and Daniela. So there does need to be a presentation and getting people up to speed at the ED network. And then once they're up to speed with the ED network, then I think it's for us to now sit down as a group and collaborate and say, hey, how do we create this connectivity with ourselves, with the SDP, and I'm including myself in the SDP and the EDP, and the ED network, sorry. So that's the next step, Ishmael, and by all means, we're not looking to do anything alone.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. And the SDP, I think would be welcome if they wanted to provide a presentation on their own as well. So both ways, and the city, it'd be great if you did it jointly, but there would be an opportunity to present. Adonis, you'd agree with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to remind, the SDP did present as well about information to the ED network as well. I think the difference in Richard is that there's more new members who lack the background. And so that would be helpful to have another opportunity to learn more about the SDP and understand better about the SDP. But I think that's one of the reasons why we have are working to struck a committee that will look particularly at the SDP and see how we could ensure that more understanding that around the table.
Yeah, and I do want to emphasize that when the city was there, their primary focus was the prioritizing talking about the SDP and their role and how it all connected. Deanie?
Yeah, I was going to just say that. I know Diana gave an orientation presentation to the SDP about the SDP to the ED network. But one of the things that would be helpful is when you do bring new members on to the executive directors, because I mean, there is always turnover, and you do orientation, that be something you do in your orientation. There's actually resources in our Google Drive on the orientation of around the SDP that could be utilized. And the other thing is to put it as a standing item on your agenda. So if there's something to report, we used to have a report from the Executive Directors Network to the SDP as well, when it was before the refresh, when it was a stakeholders table that is now similar to our planning committee. There was a report that would go from the Executive Directors Network to the SDP and then vice versa, if there was something to report from the SDP to the Executive Directors. So that kept the communication bridge.
Yes. Good. Thanks, Deanie. Adonis?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Deanie said. Actually, the ED table has a standing agenda on the SDP. And as you know, Greg's the chair. And that report happens every meeting.
Okay, well then that's good. Thank you.
Thanks for helping me out there, Adonis. I didn't want to blow that horn, but
no, it's good to know because we don't know that,
Yeah. And but you're right about the other side, is that I think we could do more of an orientation for the new ED members that come on board. So I think that's a good point. Thanks, Deanie. Are you guys okay if we move on, because we have limited time and we got a couple agenda items we want to get to at the end. We have an announcement on React.
So the agenda item?
Yeah, does that come before announcements? Any new business?
That'd be after. So this is the last agenda item we have, but ahead of going to the next agenda item, I wasn't sure if Ishmael's hand was related to
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to. I try to find it, but can we get a copy of the ED Network's terms of reference?
Yes, yes. We're cleaning them up right now as well, so it might be just give us a minute because we're just doing a cleanup of them. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Even if it's even if it's the oldest, the latest old one you have, just for context.
Okay. Let me just. I'll just make that ask at our next meeting. I don't think it's an issue at all, but I just want to go through the process. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
So the community report back is an agenda item for this meeting?
It will be if we get through the planned agenda. So
it was part of the planned agenda.
Michael, it's not on the planned agenda. I know that you said it should have been brought forward in our planning session. We didn't include it. So if we can get this item out of the way, we're going to have time. Let's just get this done. Danella, are you going to take it?
yeah, so it was a message about the React trainings that we've had going on. So I'll just quickly read through like the invitation and give a brief background on React, which stands for Race, Equity, Advisory, Consulting, and Training. And earlier this week, I believe it was actually yesterday, we had our first virtual dialogue sessions. And essentially, React engages dialogue and facilitates anti-racism, equity, diversity, and inclusion workshops across GTA for community, nonprofits, as well as government organizations. The Anti-Racism Action Program had invited React to engage with members of the SDP to talk through some opportunities as well as challenges about working group membership dynamics, expectations of leadership, self and group accountability, as well as community building and resident well-being. So during these sessions, the React team has a set of questions, and essentially their role for this first part is deep listening and note-taking. And with these responses, from the first set of dialogues, it'll help inform the next set of workshop content, as well as recommendations that they will be giving to ARAP so that it can improve our working groups. So as for the discussion questions, they kind of touch on a variety of topics, so that being roles and responsibilities related to the SDP network working groups, as well as current challenges being experienced across team dynamics, effective communication tools, needs and desires, managing difficult moments, individual and group accountability, impacts of racial trauma, human rights, equity, diversity, and inclusion principles, intersectionality, as well as different forms of oppression, whether that being anti-Black racism, misogyny, sexism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, homophobia, and xenophobia through an intersectional lens. So I will be sharing a link to the chat as presently we have 4 more conversations taking place. So the next one being on March 2nd from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. for service providers only. And then there's a meeting on March 6th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. for residents only. On March 9th, there's a meeting from 5:30 to 7 p.m. for those who identify as women or non-binary people, as well as on March 14th from 5:30 to 7, there's going to be another residents only discussion. So please be mindful when registering or sharing the message that participants are only able to participate in one, as presently there is like a cap on the number of people. So just being mindful which session you choose to be a part of, and that it might limit your participation in other ones. And I will now go ahead and share the link in the chat to register, and I can also forward the email invite to anyone who may be interested. Richard, I have a hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say there's been a lot of money that has been spent on this to get this done and to really look at some of those social cohesion pieces just within the SDP. So please, please, please encourage your working group partners and everyone else that is connected to the SDP to pick a course or to pick, sorry, a day and please show up to it, because there is a lot of money that was spent on working on this. I just want to make sure I emphasize that we don't want that money to go to waste, and for it to not be a wholesome, to not get enough numbers to actually get some of the stuff done that needs to be done.
Thanks, Richard. And now, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, that concludes if there's no other additional comments or questions.
Okay, Dini, did you want to get your thing, and then we'll spend the last 10 minutes on Michael's?
Yeah, I know Daniela had raised it at the CBOG meeting that there was a time conflict with the impact report session and CBOG's resident engagement training. And some of the folks are the same people that would attend both sessions. And I'm wondering what happened there, that wasn't able, that one of the two wasn't rescheduled.
This is who should address that?
So yeah, myself and Richard are trying to connect with TCHC and make sure that there's no conflict on that date.
Awesome, thank you. That's what I was hoping for. Thank you.
Okay, great, Dini. So we've covered off that. So Michael, do you want to present your agenda item?
I know that in December we considered this and had some schedule for when the report back was going to happen and when the stakeholders table was going to happen. You know, given the number of months that have passed, I think that we can basically do one meeting before the next stakeholders table, which would be in June. So I mean, it looks like if we don't want to skip the report back for this year, then I think we need to have a date for it late March or early April.
Okay, and are you proposing that the group vote on that, or not really vote? The vote, you get some agreement on that?
Well, I would like to have an actual date in April, I guess, at this point, to give some time. And I would like to, I wasn't actually directly part of the planning for that last time. It was mostly Ibrahim and some people who worked with him. I don't even know all of the people who it was. But so if people, you know, if we don't make a decision to do this, then we're basically not going to do it this year.
Okay, does anyone want to speak to that? I remind everyone that all SDP meetings are, okay, I got you. Oh, Ishmael?
Yeah, so the progress report is mandatory for us. It's in the terms of reference. Every year we have to do a report back to community around what has happened, what's been done, and also to gain feedback from community. So it's urgent and important for us to do. So I do agree with Michael that we have to set a date for it, and we have to plan and prepare for it. And it also needs resourcing as well in order to host it, because you're inviting the whole community and informing them this is what we've done. What is it that you'd like to see going forward? So it's a mandatory meeting as part of our terms of reference. It got delayed because of the work that we did last year, but it's yearly, so it's something that's needed. And it does need someone to lead, someone who can sort of an events planner kind of person. And Ibrahim, luckily there was a few community building events that were happening that was sort of combined. So yeah, so it's urgent and needed, and needs leadership to convene people to plan it.
Okay, so Michael, did you want to play a role in this, or anyone? Go ahead, Dini.
And it needs resourcing. This is one of the activities that I was speaking about where there's no budgeted money.
Yeah,
Right,
that's the
right.
question I was gonna pose.
And Waleed, are you gonna make?
I'm gonna, and other business, just before we end the meeting, I want to make sure that we have the strategic meeting set up. before
let's get
2
this
o'clock. I just
report.
gotta
Let's
jump
get
at
this
2 o'clock.
report
But with
back down
regards to
real
this
quick.
item, I don't mind playing a supporting role if someone else wants to step up. And I just have a lot on my plate, to be honest, and I can't overexert myself. So I can be there to help with setting up Zoom meetings, agendas, all that sort of background stuff. As long as someone is able to facilitate and is able to follow up with the appropriate co-chairs to make sure everything is getting done, I'm in.
Is anyone able to support Waleed and Michael on this? Anybody?
Do we have any other co-chairs of our work groups that we could?
Good call, Deanie. Yeah, to go to the groups. Michael, how about if we take this away now and see if we can get a date? Or do you want to get a date today for your next meeting, or can you take it away and see if we can get somebody from some of the groups to help out with this too?
Yeah.
I would have liked to have got a date today, but I mean, it seems like we're still lacking the person to sort of major lead this. I mean, we've got some people who will assist. I mean, my role, I think, would more be sort of making sure that content is available from the evaluation committee. But the actual event planning, like, I think we need an overall leader for that.
Yeah, and was Ibrahim originally going to take a lead?
No. So this falls under planning committee. It's a planning committee responsibility.
Okay.
And Ibrahim did it sort of in both way as a planning committee member, but it also we leverage other events that were happening at the same time. But it's a purely planning committee item.
Is anyone at this table on the planning committee?
No. Yeah, it's this table's responsibility.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, it's ours. It's ours.
I was hoping that was a group outside of here. So we have to do it. Okay, I got you. So we're gonna need someone to take the lead from this group.
So if not, it becomes.
Well, I would suggest we still ask Ibrahim, but I mean, we need to have like at least another person or somebody who's a backup if he can't do it.
Well, Waleed said he was willing. He just needed some additional support.
So if we can find someone, it becomes an hour of the planning committee to plan this.
Okay, but we're gonna need the event side of it too. I don't mind helping out with the planning too, organizing it, but I just can't be the event planner. I can't be the event planner for it.
I will participate.
I'll participate.
Yeah, so I think we come together and just kind of scope it out now that Michael's put it out there. So we're probably going to need to have a separate meeting just to start to kind of move it. Yeah. And I know we got so many committees, but I think we're going to have to put something together for this. Joel?
Well, it always was its own like planning subcommittee to do this. So I think that has to be done again this year.
I agree. Michael, let Joel weigh in on this.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's possible to think of other ways to come at it. I was curious when I saw the stuff about the city having a community update, that's fairly similar to the idea of a report back or a progress report. I don't know if there's space to rethink that community update that the city's doing and work together so that it can achieve the goals that the city has, as well as being a report back.
Richard?
I can offer a response. So what's being created is a report based on city investments for the Regent Park neighborhood. And what we've experienced over the past couple of months is a challenge really getting data. So I've reached out to the working groups, and I think only I think either 1 or 2 out of the 4 working groups have shared something back since January when that first request came out. And we're hoping to go through the next stage in the next week or like next coming of weeks so that we can report back to the neighborhood. But this is us like preparing in terms of like looking at what the past 2 or 3 years of city funding has looked like so that the city of Toronto can share a report with the neighborhood. And I can like share that if there is like interest to do like a larger like collaboration, but as for like how we're presently collaborating, we have reached out to like the different working groups, and the response from them hasn't been any sharing or updates received.
Okay.
And we do have another meeting that's set up, or that was the one that Deanie brought up, that was in conflict with the March 1st TCHC CBOG one. So most likely, I believe Monumental's not going to be able to change their date. So most likely we'll be flipping our date. So Michael, it might make sense to wait till that session to see if these things do align to Joel's piece. And then maybe there's some of that report that we're gonna push it out with, obviously with some comments and some pieces from you all, but maybe there's a way to take portions of that and then add portions in, so you're not starting from scratch. It would be more of you'd have a starting place and then adding on to it pieces.
Thanks.
Okay, I mean, I was thinking, so that means that meeting will not take place on March 1st. Is that what you're telling me right now?
No, so we discussed it. Yeah, we discussed it earlier. Sorry to cut you off, Richard, when Deanie mentioned like the overlap, and we said it will be resolved so that the two meetings aren't happening at the same time, because people can't be two places at once. So yeah, like for us, the March 1st meeting is unlikely to happen. As Richard shared, Monumental has their March 1st date. That's a bit more stiff. Next, I have Waleed, Ishmael, and then Deanie.
Thank you, Daniela. I have to excuse myself because I have a 3 o'clock meeting, but
Yes,
I just
so do
want
I,
to
Waleed.
confirm
Yeah.
with members of the SDP Strategic Planning Group, if Monday, March 6th from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. works. I'm going to put this again in the chat. I looked at the SDP calendar. There seems to be no conflict at that time. So I just want to confirm that so that an agenda can be sent out and the appropriate prep happens before the meeting. So we have a very productive 1 hour.
Thanks, Waleed. I have a hard stop at 3 too. So Ishmael?
Yeah, just for my own clarification, the city's session that was meant to happen March 1st, is that a session where you're trying to seek input from SDP members and projects, or is that a session where you are reporting to community the investments you've made to the neighborhood? Or
No,
both?
we want input. We want input. We didn't want to do the report on our, like, just throw it out and this is the city's report of the SDP. We want the SDP to be involved in that report. So it's input and adding to the stuff that we have there and our actual factuals and more numbers, but we're looking for some of that community input into that. So it's community input.
And then the community input is anyone from the neighborhood, or the community input is anyone who's been part of projects or been part of work groups, or both?
So I was gonna
sorry.
offer an answer. Yeah. So like as for that, like where we've been seeking some answers, I've reached out to the different working group co-chairs for certain action items. I can reshare that with like the different working groups again. As I shared, we haven't had much of a response back in terms of like the different areas we're hoping to hear from. But again, the event is open to everyone aligned with like the SDP. It's on the SDP calendar, including that information, and it'll be so once we update it. But in terms of the contributions, that will be one chance where individuals will have a chance to contribute to the actual report. And we've reached out a couple of times already for other contributions from the group.
Yeah, I just.
Hello?
Deanie, you go ahead.
I just wanted to say, the one thing about our progress report is it has always been an opportunity to celebrate the work that we've done. I don't want to lose that flavor. And I was hoping that this year we could do a much greater emphasis when we do that event on recruiting new members and new people into the network. So I don't want to lose that by trying to combine things because it's convenient.
Right. Michael?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing that Richard is suggesting is useful for providing content. That if the content work can be maybe combined with what he's talking about, and also I was saying like there might be some content that comes from the evaluation committee, and Ibrahim also asked the working groups to provide content. So I think we've got a good way to get content together, even though obviously it all has to be done. But we have people who are working on that. It's the event planning part that we currently need to find somebody to really get that part of the process going.
Okay, well, let's pull that subcommittee together and have that conversation, Michael. Maybe you know in the group who has kind of identified themselves as ready to join, that I can help organize a subcommittee. And then let's have that conversation, okay? Listen, folks, I have to run today, but thank you very much for all your support. I think we can close the meeting, and we'll attend to this last part, okay? Have a good, I'm gonna leave.
Party at Daniel's Spectrum.
Me too.
Right. Okay.
Please let me know if there's a conflict with that date. If I'm assuming it's all good, so I'm gonna send out a notice.
Okay.
I think I might have a little bit of a, what time did you say again?
4:30 to 5:30.
4:30 to 5:30. Oh, I can probably pull that off because I have 4 o'clock, but at least I can go to the first half hour of it. Okay.
Which day? Which day?
March 6th, Monday.
Oh, that's 2 weeks. I mean, that's a week and a half from now. Didn't you mean this Monday?
No. There's a conflict on that date. There's no time. I found the only time I could find available, Michael, is the 6th, 4:30 to 5:30.
And you know what else we've been doing? I told you we were doing, the health center's been doing strat planning.
Awesome. I gotta jump into this meeting. I'm so sorry.
Okay, I was just going to tell you, they did an environmental scan. So we'll be able to pull that.
We want to, let's look at that. That's awesome. Thank you, Deanie. Bye-bye.
Oh.
See you everybody at the Spectrum.
Okay, sounds fun.
Danielle, you want to stay on for a moment?
Yep.
Quick question, Joel. The timing of the contract is extended or is the same? For Danielle?
No, same timing.
20 hours, okay.
Sorry, did we hire somebody?
Yeah, Danielle, oh, maybe you might not have been in the meeting. I'm going to send out an email too. I haven't got to it yet, but Danielle has been hired as our administrative coordinator for the SDP.
Another Danielle?
Danielle, yeah, not Daniela, Danielle.
Danielle, okay, good. Yeah, that'd be great to have her first and last name. That'd be great.
Danielle Mukaram. Yeah, I'll send it out. So, well, he's here with us right now.
Oh, okay. Oh, hi, Danielle.
Yeah, Donis.
Hey, nice to meet you.
You too.
And will the recording be sent to me?
Yeah. I can
Today's
send it to you.
meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And you have my email?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
Yeah, it will be sent.
Okay, excellent. Okay, bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Dennis.
Bye.
Okay, so just for the notes.
Oh yeah. I have them here. I just was taking them in another document because when I was sharing screen, that's why.
I figured that was probably the case. Okay, so
Yeah.
and then we can go over it tomorrow morning when we meet.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just organize them and everything.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's great. And if it doesn't even have to be done by tomorrow morning, like you can put them out later, like next week, early next week too. That's also fine.
Okay. Cool. For the recording, is it necessary for me just to press on stop recording, or if I just go out, will it just automatically save it itself?
If you just leave the meeting, you mean?
Yeah.
Usually what I would do is I would just stop recording when
Okay, I'll
like the
just do that
facilitator ends it. And it'll be either way, I think it'll be saved.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And please follow our social media platforms. And for more information, please visit our website.